Through the 1970s and into the 80s, the MiG-23 was the workhorse of Soviet military aviation, on standby to respond instantly for the Air Force and the Air Defense Force. There is a controversy about the radar that equipped the MiG-23. Western observers say that the technology copied from a Phantom F-4J shot down in the 60s allowed Soviet designers to develop a radar that could distinguish between a moving target and something else in the background, like clouds or Earth. But Soviet designers deny that they stole the idea and claim they developed it in parallel with the West. In any case, the development opened the way for the revolutionary look-down, shoot-down radar system. In the early 70s, when the MiG-23 began to be noticed by Western observers, they were not disturbed by it, considering it to be inferior to the new Western fighters in development at the time. But in 1974, when the oil crisis struck and Western economies suffered, it became clear that the MiG-23 had one great advantage. Even by Soviet standards, it was highly producible. As Western defense budgets were cut, MiG-23s continued to flow from the Soviet factories. The key to this ease of production was the continuing Soviet philosophy of simplicity of construction. To take advantage of the situation brought on by the oil crisis, MiG-23 production was accelerated to unprecedented levels. By this time, the first Western variable geometry fighter was entering service with the US Navy in increasing numbers. It was the Grumman F-14 Tomcat, designed to supersede the F-4 Phantom, and to be a major performance advance on the Soviet fighters of the time. In a way, the design brief for the F-14 was similar to that of the MiG-23. Both had to have a top speed in excess of Mach 2, and while the MiG-23 had to be able to take off from short, rough airfields, the Tomcat had to be catapulted from aircraft carrier decks. The Tomcat was bigger than the MiG-23. It had an unswept wingspan of 64 feet, compared with 47 feet in the MiG. It had a crew of 2. The MiG carried a pilot only. The Tomcat's wing sweep system was different. Its straight position was 16 degrees and fully swept 68 degrees. The MiG's 3 positions were manually selected by the pilot, but the F-14 sweep was controlled automatically by a sweep programmer that kept the wing at the best sweep angle for current flying conditions. The MiG-23 had 1 engine, and the F-14 had 2. The design of the MiG-23 was strongly influenced by the American F-111 fighter bomber, but in this aircraft, a Sukhoi Su-24, the F-111's influence is even more apparent. The Su-24 was the direct Soviet equivalent of the F-111. It was designed for the same mission, low-level penetration through enemy air defense systems, seeking targets well beyond the front line. The Soviets classified this aircraft as a frontal bomber, but NATO gave it the code name Fencer. The initial letter F in NATO code stands for fighter. NATO chose an F-code word for the Su-24 because its American counterpart, the F-111, is classified by its own country as a fighter. The Su-27 has two seats arranged side by side. The pilot sits in one and the weapons control officer sits in the other. External weapons have always been a problem for variable geometry aircraft. Fixed hard points under a movable wing move with the wing instead of pointing straight ahead. The Su-24 solves this problem by having swiveling pylons that remain parallel to the center line of the aircraft no matter how much the wing sweeps. There has always been great rivalry between the MiG and Sukhoi Design Bureau. By the 1960s, they were the only two Soviet designers of tactical combat aircraft. Their position at the top of the hierarchy is secure and is respected by the whole of the industry. Sukhoi's Su-17 and the MiG-23 have almost identical performance. But the Soviet Air Force would not rationalize the situation and stop production of one or the other for fear of offending its design bureau. There was a design study for an aircraft to be called the MiG-35. It would have been a direct competitor with the Sukhoi Su-24. It never went into production. The F-111 weighs 100,000 pounds fully loaded. The Su-24 is smaller and lighter. Its unswept wingspan is 56 feet, and its maximum takeoff weight is 87,000 pounds. Its overall dimensions place it somewhere between the F-111 and the F-14. The smallest and lightest by far of this quartet of Soviet and US variable geometry aircraft is the MiG-23, with a fully loaded weight of around 40,000 pounds. By the mid-1970s, the MiG-23BN, with its chopped nose line giving better pilot visibility, was in service. This led to an even more extensively modified version dedicated exclusively to ground attack. It was called the MiG-27. It was basically the same airframe as the MiG-23, but the pilot's field of view was better and there was more armor around the cockpit. It was fitted out to carry air-to-ground rather than air-to-air weapons. In a ground attack aircraft, extreme speed is not necessary. Most of the mission is carried out at transonic speeds and low altitude. The MiG-27 was the first Mikoyan aircraft with a digital weapons control system. The MiG-23's radar was replaced with a laser rangefinder and illuminator for laser-guided missiles and rockets. The MiG-27K also had a TV search and track system. Around 850 MiG-27s were built. The 27M is still being produced in India under license by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. In the 1970s, the MiG-27 was designed to carry smart munitions. The American experience with such weapons in the Gulf War has reinforced the Russian Air Force's interest in this approach, and the MiG-27 is likely to have a long service future. One MiG-27 pilot says the digital weapon system is so smart that if you placed an officer's hat on the ground, he could hit it from many kilometers away. The digital weapons system is also designed to operate against ground air defenses. The aircraft carries anti-radar missiles which home in on any radar that locks onto it from the ground. The anti-radar missiles are fast enough to destroy the radar before the surface-to-air missile reaches the aircraft. The MiG-23 and its descendants have accumulated a service life of more than 20 years. The MiG-23 is no longer the mainstay of the Soviet fighter force, and variable geometry aircraft have been superseded by advances in aircraft design. But the swing-wing silhouette of the MiG-27 will be visible in Russian skies well into the next century.